Der LKW-Bauer Scania, der Bankkonzern SEB, die Rüstungsfirma Saab. 3 schwedische Unternehmen, die sonst nicht so viel gemeinsam haben. Und auf den ersten Blick erscheint es völlig unwahrscheinlich, dass sie einen Grund hätten, zusammenzuarbeiten. Doch genau das tun sie, und zwar im Innovationsnetzwerk Combient. Warum das wichtig ist? Erst Digitalisierung, dann KI und künftig Quantencomputing. Immer wieder stellen neue Technologien gerade die etablierten Unternehmen vor Herausforderungen. Und die meisten Unternehmen kämpfen diesen Kampf dann für sich alleine aus. 2 schwedische Unternehmer haben vor 10 Jahren festgestellt, das ist wirtschaftlich nicht sinnvoll. Seitdem stellen sie Vertrauen über Wettbewerb und bringen Unternehmen zusammen, die branchenübergreifend ihre technologischen Herausforderungen zusammen angehen. Der eine der beiden Unternehmer war der schwedische Banker Markus Wallenberg. Seiner Familie gehören zahlreiche schwedische Unternehmen. Der andere war Mats Agervi. Er war jahrelang für verschiedene große Unternehmen in Indien tätig, ist nun seit mehr als 10 Jahren der CEO von Combient und kennt sich wie kaum ein anderer mit den Transformationsherausforderungen aus, die Unternehmen aller Branchen teilen. Neulich war er zu Gast auf dem Handelsblatt KI Summit. Und dort haben wir diese Folge von Handelsblatt Disrupt live aufgezeichnet. Wir haben darüber gesprochen, wie ihn die Zeit in indischen Megacities bei rasant wachsenden Unternehmen geprägt hat. Wo genau Unternehmen wie Scania, SEB und Saab denn wirklich miteinander und voneinander lernen können und wer dann die Agenda bestimmt. Und wie diese Firmen davon profitieren, dass Stockholm, also die schwedische Hauptstadt, gerade eine der heißesten KI-Szenen Europas hat. All das können Sie jetzt in diesem Podcast hören. Und damit herzlich willkommen zu Handelsblatt Disrupt. Ich bin Larissa Holzki und ich freue mich, dass Sie zuhören. Zuerst, das kennen Sie schon, starten wir hier aber wieder mit den wichtigsten Technologie-News der Woche. Und dazu ist heute meine Kollegin Luisa Bumke bei mir im Studio in Düsseldorf. Sie ist KI-Reporterin beim Handelsblatt und schreibt zusammen mit unserem Technologie-Teamleiter Stefan Scheuer das KI-Briefing. Hallo Luisa, schön, dass du wieder da bist.
Hi Larissa, schön wieder hier zu sein.
Luisa, im KI-Briefing berichtet ihr immer über die wichtigsten KI-News der Woche und was sie für andere Unternehmen bedeuten. Welche Nachricht dürfen wir diese Woche nicht verpassen?
Ja, nach unseren Recherchen stehen bei Aleph Alpha harte Einschnitte bevor. Die KI-Firma aus Heidelberg war oder ist die bekannteste KI-Firma in Deutschland und galt als der große Hoffnungsträger. Seit dem Spätsommer haben sie eine neue Unternehmensführung. Da kam CEO Reto Spörri dazu. Bis Oktober hat er das Unternehmen zusammen mit Jonas Androulis, dem Gründer, geführt. Seit Oktober ist Androulis aber nicht mehr in der operativen Unternehmensführung. Da wurde er durch Ilhan Scher ersetzt, der sich vor allem um Wachstum kümmert. Und die beiden neuen Chefs, die bauen das Unternehmen jetzt womöglich deutlich um.
Und das sieht man als erstes an Personalwechseln. Das ist ja nicht unüblich, wenn ein neues Führungsteam übernimmt. Geht es denn da jetzt darum, einzelne Köpfe auszutauschen? Geht es um eine ganze Neuaufstellung oder um harte strukturelle Probleme?
Also laut Aleph Alpha, die wir natürlich mit unseren Rechercheergebnissen auch konfrontiert haben, geht es darum, Geschäftsbereiche stärker zu fokussieren. Also Aleph Alpha hatte vorher auch viele Produkte im Finanzbereich, in Mobilität, Industrie und Verwaltung und Verteidigung. Jetzt soll man sich stärker auf Verwaltung und Verteidigung konzentrieren. Die anderen Bereiche und Kunden werden zwar weiter betreut, aber eben weniger stark ausgebaut, die Bereiche. Und das geht womöglich auch mit einigen Personalmaßnahmen einher.
Steht denn schon fest, wie viele Mitarbeitende von diesen Umstrukturierungsmaßnahmen betroffen sein könnten?
Nein, das steht noch nicht fest. Aber laut Insiderinnen und Insidern, mit denen wir in den vergangenen Wochen gesprochen haben, sollen schon 3 Dutzend Mitarbeitende das Unternehmen verlassen haben. Das sind ungefähr 10% der aktuellen Mitarbeitendenzahl und die Insider, mit denen wir gesprochen haben, glauben sogar, dass es auf 70 bis 100 Mitarbeitende anwachsen könnte. Aleph Alpha äußert sich nicht zu den Personalmaßnahmen. Sie wollen die Zahlen nicht bestätigen, sagen aber, dass eben einige Mitarbeitende gehen und einige hinzukommen und auch Verträge mit externen Personaldienstleistern, also Personalberatung, Technologieberatung auslaufen.
Du hast ja den CEO mehrfach um ein Interview gebeten, der will bisher aber nicht mit der Presse sprechen. Trotzdem ist ja jetzt einiges zu uns durchgedrungen. Gib mal unseren Hörerinnen und Hörern einen Einblick, wie geht man bei so einer Recherche vor und worauf muss man in so einem Fall ganz besonders achten, wenn sich jetzt Insider melden?
Ich meine, das Erste, worauf wir achten müssen, das merkt man vielleicht gerade auch schon daran, wie ich formuliere. Wir müssen natürlich im Konjunktiv formulieren, weil es noch nicht von den Unternehmen bestätigt wurde. Und genau, meistens ist es so, dass wir 1, 2 Hinweise von verschiedenen Informantinnen und Informanten bekommen und dann natürlich die Gespräche auch suchen und schauen, ob etwas daran dran ist oder nicht. Wir sprechen dann auch immer mit Personen von verschiedenen Seiten, damit das Bild nicht verzerrt ist und wir eben das, was gerade in den Unternehmen passiert, möglichst ganzheitlich abdecken. Was natürlich noch wichtig ist, ist unser Quellenschutz. Das ist das Wichtigste für uns. Wir wollen natürlich nicht preisgeben, mit wem wir genau gesprochen haben. Und da kommt es dann immer darauf an, dass wir zum einen sehr deutlich machen, dass wir eine sehr gute Quellenlage haben und breit informiert sind, aber nicht genau sagen, woher die Quellen kommen, damit eben nicht zurückzuführen ist, wer unsere Quellen waren.
Und dazu muss man manchmal gut auch abschätzen können, wie viele Leute haben gerade die Information, die einem zugetragen wurde, damit nicht automatisch die andere Seite weiß, das können ja nur 1, 2, 3 Personen weitergetragen haben. Nun wissen wir auch, künftig will sich Aleph Alpha wohl auf die Bereiche Verwaltung und Verteidigung fokussieren. Gibt es noch mehr, was dazu rausgedrungen ist?
Ja, genau. Laut einigen Insidern wird vermutet, dass Aleph Alpha zu einer Art Edelberatung für die beiden Bereiche werden könnte. Und wie wir eben ja schon einmal gesagt haben, bisher war Aleph Alpha auch in den Bereichen Mobilität, Automobilindustrie und Finanzen sehr stark. Ein Partner und auch Co-Investor, der in dem Bereich natürlich zu Hause ist Bosch, der Automobilzulieferer aus Stuttgart. Und der soll wohl schon länger Probleme gehabt haben, Anwendungsbereiche für die Technologie von Aleph Alpha zu finden. Und soll jetzt auch darüber verhandeln, die Anteile abzugeben.
Nach einer kurzen Unterbrechung geht es gleich weiter. Bleiben Sie dran.
We're living in a rapidly changing world, and now more than ever, Europe needs to define its future. Global markets have become battlegrounds, and fields like AI, biotech, digital sovereignty, security and space exploration will mean the difference between success and failure. These themes stand at the core of tech, Europe's hub for innovation and collaboration. From the 31st of May to the 2nd of June 2026, Handelsblatt, the Handelsblatt Media Group and Schwarz Digits will welcome leading minds to Heilbronn. Find out more at tech-europe.org.
Wer seine Anteile verkaufen will, der braucht natürlich auch immer einen, der daran interessiert ist. Jetzt gibt es gerade wirklich große Fragezeichen, wie es um die Firma steht. Das ist keine gute Voraussetzung, um die Anteile auf den Markt zu geben. Gibt es denn jemanden, der trotzdem Interesse an diesen Firmenanteilen haben könnte?
Ja, den gibt es wohl. Schwarz, also der Konzern hinter Lidl und Kaufland, der auch bisher schon Investor ist, soll wohl Interesse haben, die Anteile von Bosch zu übernehmen. Derzeit sollen die beiden Konzerne verhandeln. Und für Schwarz könnte das Ganze auch einen deutlichen Vorteil haben, denn der Konzern hat schon einen Sitz im Beirat von Aleph Alpha und könnte mit den Anteilen von Bosch noch einen weiteren dazugewinnen. Und zusätzlich könnte er dann wohl über ein neues Finanzierungsevent entscheiden.
Und das ist für Schwarz möglicherweise interessant, weil sie ein großes Cloud-Geschäft aufbauen wollen, weil sie auch interessiert sind an einer Gigafactory. Du hast viel dazu berichtet. Was steckt dahinter?
Die AI Gigafactory ist ein Projekt von der EU, das gefördert werden soll. Dahinter verbirgt sich ein riesiges Rechenzentrum mit mehr als 100.000 Chips. Und das möchte die Schwarz-Gruppe eben gerne zusammen mit der Telekom und dem kanadischen Investor Brookfield und der KI-Firma Cohere, wie wir jetzt von Insidern erfahren haben, wohl aufbauen. Und da sind sie gerade noch in den Verhandlungen, weil die Bewerbungsphase und genau die Zusage der EU erst im kommenden Jahr aussteht.
Und da könnte es durchaus interessant sein, eigene KI-Lösungen anzubieten. Von Aleph Alpha zu dem allergrößten Player in dem Feld KI. Fokussierung und Neuausrichtung treibt tatsächlich gerade alle um, insbesondere auch OpenAI. Da hat der Gründer Sam Altman sogar die Alarmstufe Rot ausgerufen. Was steckt denn dahinter?
Ja, OpenAI hat eine neue Dringlichkeitsstufe ausgerufen. Die bewerten das in einer Art Ampelsystem. Gelb die niedrigste Dringlichkeit, Orange, Mittel und Rot jetzt eben höchste Alarmstufe. Denn Sam Altman hat Angst, dass er von seinen Konkurrenten überholt wird. Gemini, der Chatbot von Google, kam vor wenigen Wochen raus, Gemini 3, eine neue Version. Und der ist eben so gut, dass jetzt Altman auch von seinen Mitarbeitenden verlangt, dass ChatGPT, der Chatbot von OpenAI, eben deutlich besser wird. Zudem hat der Rivale Anthropic jetzt den Börsengang vorbereitet oder ist gerade dabei. Und auch das strebt OpenAI im kommenden Jahr an. Und Sam Altman hat da wirklich Angst, ins Hintertreffen zu geraten.
Es ist auf jeden Fall sehr viel Stress gerade bei allen, wenn es ins neue Jahr geht. Und die Frage, wer behält da die Nase vorn im Rennen und wer kann sich weiter behaupten, da werden wir in den nächsten Wochen und Monaten ganz sicher dranbleiben und dann wieder mit dir sprechen, Luisa. Für heute erstmal vielen herzlichen Dank, dass du da warst.
Gerne, vielen Dank.
Und wenn Sie wegen solcher Einblicke und Berichte jetzt über ein Handelsblatt-Abo nachdenken, dann habe ich ein Angebot für Sie. Das H+ Premium-Abo gibt es jetzt 4 Wochen lang für nur 1 Euro. Damit lesen Sie dann fundierte Recherchen, starke Meinungen und exklusive Hintergründe und behalten den Überblick über die wichtigsten Wirtschafts- und Technologiethemen. Mehr Infos dazu finden Sie unter handelsblatt.com/mehrwirtschaft. Und damit zu meinem Gespräch mit dem CEO von Combient, Mats Agervi. So, hi Mats, pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, and it's a truly big pleasure for me to be with you here and listening to the interesting discussion. My German is very, very rusty, but I do realize that a lot of the topics you are discussing here is the same common problems as we see in the Nordic. And on top of that, you gave me a good excuse as well to visit your beautiful city and your wonderful country. So thank you for having me here.
That's great to hear. Mats, today's topic is trust over competition, how companies across industries can join forces to innovate. That's the question you've been working on every day for the past 11 years at Combient, a network of over 30 Nordic companies driving digital transformation together. Why is this topic so important to you?
Well, I guess it's by many reasons. You know, as a person, I've always been a little bit entrepreneurial. And what can be better than working with 36 large companies and get an insight and see what they need for the future and be a part of their journey. And on top of that as well, as a Swede, as a European citizen, at least I feel a little bit nervous about how we are losing speed against the rest of the world. So being a part of pushing this and try to help the industry and our society to be better prepared for the future is a fantastic, I think, job content, you know.
Mm-hmm. Some in the audience may not know Combient, but they probably know its members. Companies like the truck maker Scania, the fashion retailer H&M, the defense company Saab, the telecom firm Ericsson. You first started with companies linked to one of Sweden's most influential business dynasties, the Wallenberg family. Is that still part of your selection criteria today?
No, it's not actually. I think we should be very happy, I think, up in the Nordic that we have the Wallenberg family, who have been with a lot of the companies for more than 100 years. And they are really thinking as well national about how do we prepare for our future. And one of the reasons Combient was created was their will to future-proof their companies in the digital age. No, the network today is not built on that you need to be a part of a sphere. It's actually built on that you find incumbent players who have a need to transform and that they believe in a collaborative model. The key thing is that they need to be big companies, probably around €1 billion. They need to have a leadership that truly want to make a difference.
€1 billion in revenue.
In revenue, yeah. And on top of that, what have become the important thing is that they don't compete. We are not a company for profit, right? We are only here as a network to help each of the company who participates to create value in their own business operation. And based on that, one of the key things to build trust is that companies don't compete. So every time a company comes to the network and say, we would like to join, all the existing company have to say yes. So everyone has a veto against every new company who joined. So we started up with 11 companies, but it has been growing. So now actually it's 36 companies representing about €280 billion in turnover as a group and has about 1.4 million employees across the world.
And all of them are still based in the Nordics?
Actually, at least when it comes to the headquarters, right? So that's an interesting thing that actually the company who have joined us has all their headquarters either in Finland or in Sweden. And I think that's a very important thing we sometimes forget, right? That if we want the companies to be more engaged in our society, to keep our headquarters and keep R&D, I think is crucial. And it's dangerous if we let it go. Now I maybe shouldn't start to talk about EU and our regulations, but I'm close to do that, right? But,
let's do that another time. Yes.
Maybe do that later.
Yes, and we'll talk in a moment about how you drive innovation at Combient. But first, let's get to know you a bit better. I read that you grew up in a small Swedish town of about 6,000 people, and once said you'd never move to the big city of Stockholm. Is that true?
Yeah, I can admit that. And I don't know if you even call 6,000 people in a place for a town. Maybe it's more a village.
Okay, and well, not only did you move to Stockholm, about 20 years ago you went much further, taking charge of IBM India's operations. What made you take that leap to Bangalore, a city with more people than all of Sweden?
You have really read my history. Yeah. I mean,
I'm a journalist.
It was simply like that. I was working for IBM, and I was a Nordic manager, and IBM, as you know, had a very well-defined career move. So my next step would be Paris, because that's where we had the EMEA headquarters. Personally, I felt that I know Europe, I know Paris, I've been there before. So I said to them, guys, I want to be a part of a headquarter in US, or I want to go to Asia, because everything happens in Asia now, right? So then we were quiet for a while, and then they came back and said to me, Mats, now you're a part of the IBM headquarters, but you will be located in India.
Interesting.
And I thought, that was pretty cool. I didn't know much about India. And when I talked to the EMEA chairman we had at that time, he looked at me with big eyes and said, I heard you're going to India. Good luck. So I was thinking like I was going to die or something. But it was truly interesting, 2003, I can tell you, it was a good time.
And you didn't die. You then spent several years in India, later as managing director of Ericsson India Global Services, one of the company's largest sites outside Sweden. How did that cultural experience shape you?
I think that the thing with India is that it's an amazing country. I mean, it has the best things in the world, and it has the worst thing in the world, and it's there everywhere. But there is something in India which at least I admire, and that is that everything is possible. You don't take a no for an answer in India. Everything is possible, right? So you could build things which you couldn't at least dream of in Sweden, right? We recruited 1,200 people a month. And we're growing like crazy. And every employee
2 times your village.
shared the vision of doing this, right? So I think during my time as a leader, I was blessed of growing, I think, with 55,000 employees or something like that during the 8 years I was in India. And it's just an amazing feeling, that you are doing things on a magnitude you don't think is possible, right? So I really like India, as you hear, right? I think it's a wonderful place, but at the same time, it's a very tough place as well for many, many people.
Also, Combient's story began in India. That's where banker Markus Wallenberg met you at the time. And together you asked yourselves, everyone is talking about digital transformation, but how do we actually make it happen? So let's go back to that moment 11 years ago. What were the challenges of digital transformation you had in mind back then?
Well, as Marcus came down to India, I thought he was going to be impressed by the fact that we had grown 20,000 people in Ericsson in India and made it to the biggest country in terms of employees in the world in 4 years. But actually what impressed him was what we were building as an infrastructure. Because when I took the job, I told the CEO that I don't care that you are using IBM and others as your IT providers. I will build my own IT to become cost efficient, but also to be able to innovate. So we were building an infrastructure based on open source with Ubuntu, LibreOffice. We had a proprietary cloud already 2012. And we were developing automation and AI solution, which no one else could dream of down there. And when Marcus saw that, he said to me, Mats, what you guys are doing, that's what we need to learn the industry to do. So we started up Combient with its 11 companies. And I can tell you, I got a board from the industry who worked closely with me. And don't tell them this now, but I had to make a dictionary to them so they understood what we were talking about, because they didn't understand. We were talking about AI, we were talking about, cloud and software containers and blockchain and so on. And they didn't know what we talked about, right? So what was the challenge when we started? It was actually first to get the leaders to understand what was going on. And then secondly, to get the license actually to collaborate with the companies, because this is big companies, and here you come, 10 persons from something they never heard about, which their CEO talked that they should participate in, and they start to wonder, what are you going to learn me? And when you then go to them and say, actually, you're not going to learn so much from me, but I'm going to help you to learn from your peers, from the other companies. And there you have then, at that time, we didn't have 1.4 million, but I think we had about 400,000 smart people, which you can learn together with and learn from, right? But that was a tough time. And I think the key thing we learned was that we talked technology, but the problem was somehow not technology. We learned that. It was about more soft things like us, people. It was about organizations. It was about processes. It was about culture. And all those things which we maybe didn't think about in the beginning when we were coming with technology and thought it was so cool, right?
And how did you come to the idea that the key might be collaboration across industries?
How we come to that? It's simply because even if this is great companies and big ones, and you mentioned a couple of those, actually, when they are going into new technology, and if you talk about digital technology or you talk AI, they still are a very small group of people, right, who is working with that. So to be able to build the scale and to be able to attract talent, right, especially 10 years ago, to get data scientists and data engineers to work, it was extremely hard for them to build the scale themselves. But we could build it together. And that was a little bit the idea, that together we can attract the right people, and together we can create scale, even in different areas. I mentioned before, people. And if you take, for example, HR managers, they have a very crucial role in their company to drive transformation if you want to become an AI-driven company, right? But an old HR manager, what do they know about Scrum? And what do they know about data scientists and data engineers and training, right? Not so much, but still they have a super important role. And I think when we did our studies, for example, they came up with that they needed to retrain 50% of their people. So then we're talking about hundreds and thousands of people. And they are, of course, asking the obvious question, what am I going to train them for? How are they going to work in the future, right? So by bringing HR managers together, by bringing in experts from the outside, we could train each other together, if you know what I mean. Learn from each other, discuss the topics, and then they can go back to their company and feel much more confident that they are doing the right things, because they are not alone. They have learned this together with their peers.
And as far as I know, back then you thought Combient would be a project for just a few years.
Yes.
I mean, today the challenges look quite different, but the network is still very much alive. Can you give us a concrete example of how companies within Combient actually work together with regard to AI?
I can give you a lot of different examples.
Start with one.
Can I give you 3?
Okay.
One thing, as I mentioned, was that we started up to pool resources to help them to get data scientists and data engineers. That actually ended up with that we were building together with a startup, which you probably know, Silo AI, with Peter Salin, Europe's biggest private AI lab.
Based in Finland.
Based in Finland and in Sweden, because we had people on both sides, right? So we actually had more than 300 resources with about 78% PhDs. So that is one example on what we could create together for the companies. Another great example, I maybe should stop by I can mention that as well. You talked about sovereignty here before, I guess. How do you work with that, and how do you build up your HPC competence? We are, for example, right now having 2 initiatives around HPC. One is that a couple of the companies have gone together and built a super pod, which will be placed in Stockholm based on NVIDIA. And the second one is that we are running as an alternative, because you don't want to put all the eggs in the same basket, a multi-tenant solution together with AMD, where we are building one also super pod, but based on another technology, which is also secure from a multi-tenant perspective. So we are exploring those things together, because HPC is crucial, but it's very expensive to go into yourself. And on top of that, you maybe don't have experience. And the final thing, which I think is so cool because it's so connected to Germany, is that we are looking for innovative AI companies together. And BMW had something called the Startup Garage, which was invented here in Germany, which was a fantastic idea to speed up the innovation in the company and start to find a good way to work with the companies. We stole that idea and took it over to Combient, and then we added the collaboration part, where you also can learn from your colleagues and learn from their mistakes and do things together. And we started a venture client alliance model, which was growing, and today we have about 30,000 startups in our database from all over the world who has been a part of that. And now actually we have started as well to go in Germany with this collaboration model, and we have our first 2 German companies now who is joining us to collaborate, Kion and Traton. But the most cool thing is that actually the people who was a part of building the BMW Startup Garage is now also joining us. So we have Anna Carolina Axel joining us as a head of operation, but we also have a senior advisor, Dr. Matthias Meyer, who was the founder of BMW Startup Garage and also the head of it, who is with us today. I think Matthias is here as well, if you see him. So I think this one is a beautiful story about how you can actually build on something great and then turn it back. And now it's a unique setup where we're using collaborative models to find the best AI startups.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those examples. I think that's very helpful. And I find it very remarkable that behind Combient is first and foremost one influential family. Do you think family-owned businesses in general have an advantage over listed companies when it comes to long-term transformation?
I absolutely must say yes. And if you look about Combient now, we have, of course, the Wallenberg family, but you have also a family called Hallin from Finland, who is behind Kone. You have a family called Axel Jonsson, who is big in a lot of different industries. You have a Persson family behind H&M. You have Kamprad behind IKEA, and so on. So we have a number of families which is involved in Combient and participates in our senior executive communities. Why are they so important? Because, as I said, for Wallenberg or for others, they have been with their companies for a very, very long time, and they want to ensure that they survive into the future. So their focus, I think, is much longer than a CEO has, right? It's much longer than a board has. So from that perspective, I think it is super important and help you to drive long-term transformation because you have a different focus, right?
Nach einer kurzen Unterbrechung geht es gleich weiter. Bleiben Sie dran.
Mission 2029. Deutschland soll kriegstüchtig sein, so das Ziel von Verteidigungsminister Boris Pistorius. Kanzler Friedrich Merz fordert zugleich, die Bundeswehr zur stärksten konventionellen Armee Europas aufzurüsten. Auch die EU hat deutliche Ziele formuliert. Wer jetzt liefern muss, erfahren Sie auf der Handelsblatt-Konferenz Sicherheit und Verteidigung. Melden Sie sich jetzt an auf handelsblatt-sicherheit.de und sparen Sie 15% mit dem Code PODCAST.
Let's move from the established players to the new ones.
Yeah.
Right now, Stockholm is probably Europe's hottest AI ecosystem with several new startups, the most famous being Lovable. So a company whose software lets users program by voice.
Yeah.
What's behind the hype around the Swedish AI ecosystem, and can Combient benefit from it?
We are working closely, for example, with Lovable and doing joint hackathons because it's such a cool thing, the vibe coding and the model they have, right? So we are utilizing them as a part of driving innovation. Why does this happen in Sweden? I think somehow that it, I mean, of course, if you look to Sweden, I mean, we have an unproportionally big amount of global large companies, but many of those goes long back to the Industrial Revolution. But then something happened, with the dot-com boom. We had a lot of big dot-com companies, not that many who survived, but still they were very aggressive and they built up this feeling that you can really do something. And they created a number of persons who became angel investors. And if you look to the amount of unicorns now in Sweden it's more than 40, which again is a big number.
$1 billion companies or valued by...
Yeah, and Spotify, Klarna, Even in the gaming business, you have Minecraft, Candy Crush, Battlefield, and all those kind of things. So I think those people laid the foundation for the next generation, which we see now when it comes to AI.
And some of them are called founder factories because they produce new startups.
Yeah. And I think now, we had, I don't know if you heard about Sana Labs.
Explain.
Sana Labs was a company started up a couple of years ago, not very long, by a young person as well, coming out with the idea that he wanted to find a different way of learning. But then he saw what happened with ChatGPT, and he built a model on top of that, which utilized ChatGPT. One of the advantages it had, for example, was that you could work with 60 languages at the same time, which you can't do with ChatGPT and so on. And also it was more secure, so we were using Sana Labs. Now they became acquired by Workday, unfortunately. So we have American companies coming in and buying, our AI companies. But
for the investors, that's a good thing.
But I think, again, what happened now with Joel, what is happening with Lovable, is that all the youngsters see that you can do this. So it's an explosion now of young entrepreneurs who goes out there and trying to build the next big AI company because they have seen that it works. And also the angel investors are coming back and give them a role model and give them support and coach and sometimes money as well, right?
Yes, true story. Before we wrap up, I'd love to get your outlook. You've seen India evolve into one of the most dynamic regions in the world, an emerging economy with an incredible pool of technical talent.
Yeah.
And you also know the strengths and weaknesses of European companies. So what role do you see for Europe in the future global economy?
I think Europe has things which no one else has. We have a global coverage, we have a customer knowledge, we have a domain expertise. But I also feel that we need to catch up on the AI thing. And you mentioned India. I'm looking at India, but right now I'm looking much more on China. And the reason is simply, in the type of companies we work with, I've showed them what happens in the US with the tech giants and so on. But they are not like them, so they don't really can see them as use cases on a company who fully have transformed. And in one way, the US traditional incumbent companies, they are not either transforming so fast. But if you look into China now and what's happening there, I think you can see how an industry can evolve and transform and use new technology. And it's so tangible. If you look to companies in Europe, many times from having an idea, making a prototype and scale it up in production, it takes like 15 to 18 months. But when we talk with our companies who are established in China, they say it takes maybe 9 to 6 months to do the same thing. Because they have a technology, they have an ecosystem, right? So I think when I think about the future, I think China is crucial to us. We went there one time because it was a low-cost manufacturing place. Then it became a big market. And it still is a very big market. But now I think it is a place where we need to go to learn. And we have, for example, a good example in our network, which is also connected to Germany, Scania, who just recently...
Truck maker.
Yeah, the truck maker, yeah. Who just recently opened up their next big mega factory. They have, I think, invested 2 billion euro now in China in a big factory, which will not only be a factory, it will be also an innovation hub. And the reason for doing so is that they simply say that if you want to win globally, you have to start in China, because those are the companies you will compete with, right? So when I talk about Europe, I think we have a lot of strengths on our side, but I do think as well that we need to speed up and actually look into how China is transforming their industry, because that gives us a good guidance, I think, into the future.
Mats, unfortunately, our time's up.
Okay.
I find it really inspiring to hear how companies within Combient learn from one another, and I hope, and I'm pretty sure that our listeners will take something from that as well. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for letting me be here, and for all of you who are here. I hope that we can work together as well, because I think also collaboration is maybe one of the strengths which Europe can build on. So let's collaborate, let's work more together. Thank you so much.
Und das war's dann auch für heute mit Handelsblatt Disrupt. Redaktion Larissa Holzgi, Produktion Migo Fecke. Und wenn Sie auch Herausforderungen rund um Führung, Innovationen und neue Technologien haben, bei denen wir mit einer Podcast-Folge helfen können, dann schicken Sie doch gerne Ihren Themenwunsch an uns. Schreiben Sie mir dazu einfach eine Nachricht. Details finden Sie in den Shownotes. Die nächste Folge von Disrupt kommt wie gewohnt am Freitag wieder. Ich wünsche Ihnen bis dahin eine spannende Zeit. Ihre Larissa Holzki.
Vom Nice-to-have zum wirtschaftlichen Muss. Erleben Sie, wie Unternehmen den Wandel zur zirkulären Wirtschaft gestalten, auf der Handelsblatt-Tagung Circular Economy 2026. Entdecken Sie, wie innovative Technologien, neue Materialien und künstliche Intelligenz dabei helfen, Ressourcen zu sichern, Emissionen zu senken und nachhaltiges Wachstum zu schaffen. Jetzt anmelden unter handelsblatt-circulareconomy.de und sparen Sie 15% auf Ihr Ticket mit dem Vorteilscode PODCAST.